For years, the mainstream media cited certain experts to warn against Russian disinformation and bots on Twitter. But it turns out it was all a scam, and Twitter knew it. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Russian bots. Remember back in 2018 when they were all over the media?
The call to release the memo was huge with Trump's most loyal supporters, Russian social media bots.
In the hours after the shooting in Parkland, it was Russian bots that were pushing out points and talking points about gun rights, etc.
And much of this Twitter activity was directly tied to Russian accounts.
For years, mainstream media outlets, politicians, and academics have gone on and on about how Russian bots and trolls, backed by the Kremlin, have flooded the U.S. with disinformation. Basically, any time someone online said something people didn't agree with, they were called Russian bots, which I find hurtful as someone who's often been accused of being a robot. Russian bots were blamed for hashtags such as Fire McMaster, Schumer Shutdown, Walk Away, Release the Memo, and a gazillion more. Bots were blamed for pro-gun messages after the 2018 Parkland shooting, and disinformation regarding Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's alleged assault accusations. The goal? Divide and conquer. Russian bots were even blamed for the hashtag Putin's a hottie with a body oddy oddy. Okay, maybe that one was actually Russian bots. But where did all these articles get their information? Mainly, one source. Yeah, one source. The Hamilton 68 dashboard. And if you see a problem with that, spoiler alert, you're right. The Hamilton 68 dashboard is an online tool that went live in 2017. It's the brainchild of former FBI special agent and current MSNBC contributor Clint Watts. The name Hamilton 68 comes from the 68th Federalist paper written by Alexander Hamilton, who warned about foreign influence, presumably in a catchy hip-hop song with a layered rhyme scheme. Hamilton 68 was created by the bipartisan think tank, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, or ASD. It was founded by former Bush and Obama National Security Council members with the help of the German Marshall Fund. Lots of big names help advise the Alliance for Securing Democracy, including former heads or deputy heads of the Department of Homeland Security, the CIA, and the NSA. So at first glance, Hamilton 68 seems credible. After all, it's got a lot of ex-government types behind it. It seems so credible that even academics and university presenters cite it.
There's a group called Hamilton 68.
But there's this wonderful website called Hamilton 68.
And if you look at Hamilton 68, I encourage you to look at that webpage.
We work with partners like the Stanford Internet Observatory, the Clemson Social Media Listening Center, and the Hamilton 68 Project to really understand the foreign influence online.
Really interesting website, and I think students will really enjoy.
Not sure how much students will enjoy this site. It's kind of bland. If you want kids to be into it, maybe add some explosions, some twerking, and Pete Davidson. Kids love that stuff. Hamilton 68 was the top source for articles about Russian bots and trolls from 2017 to 2019. It was also a top source for fact checkers, PolitiFact, and Snopes. But how did it work? According to the Alliance for Securing Democracy, the dashboard monitors the activities of 600 Twitter accounts linked to Russian influence efforts online. The dashboard looked through hashtags, topics, and links posted by the accounts to determine how they were amplifying Russian messages and thirst traps. Hamilton 68 presented itself as a tool to help journalists in their reporting. Laura Rosenberger, co-founder of the Alliance for Securing Democracy, said journalists watch the dashboard, see what stories are trending, and think about why they might be promoting this particular story. Sounds like a great tool. Except it turns out Hamilton 68 was one giant scam. Just like Hamilton the Musical tickets going for $500 when it's not even the original cast. I'll explain the scam after the break. Welcome back. The Alliance for Securing Democracy, or ASD, had a tool called the Hamilton 68 dashboard. Its stated intent is to counter Russian disinformation by telling Americans what messages Russian disinformation networks are pushing. Between 2017 and 2018, it did this by tracking 600 Twitter accounts the ASD claimed were linked to Russian influence efforts online. But things were suspicious from the very beginning. The think tank was tight-lipped about the 600-plus Twitter accounts they were keeping track of. For one, how they chose the accounts was vague. The ASD said the monitoring list is based on an analysis conducted over the course of roughly 3 years. And the developer of the app said they were identified with a 98% confidence rate. But how exactly did that analysis work? The description was not very specific. In addition, the list was never made public. The two co-founders said they couldn't reveal the list or else the Russians will simply shut them down. But don't worry, you can definitely trust them. I mean, when has citing your sources ever been an important part of journalism? What's next? You're going to tell me boxers need to weigh in before a fight? He looks like a flyweight. Just take his word for it. So the list of 600 some odd accounts they were tracking was a secret and put together with mysterious methods. Just a little bit sus. Which is why, in 2017, Twitter decided to reverse engineer Hamilton 68's list by analyzing its application program interface requests. And that's where the Twitter Files number 15 comes in, published by independent journalist Matt Taibbi. Because when the Twitter staff reverse engineered the list, what they discovered shocked them. Twitter found that out of 644 accounts, just 36 were registered in Russia, and many of those were associated with Russian state-run media, RT. But the accounts Hamilton 68 claimed were linked to Russian influence were mostly legit English speakers, largely in the US, Canada, and Britain. So they just called a bunch of Americans, Canadians, and Brits robots, which is super offensive to Americans and Brits. The accounts were typically right-leaning, though left-leaning accounts were included and called bots as well. Doesn't feel too good, does it? Some of the people on the list were even internet famous. Some examples include Joe Loria, editor-in-chief of the Progressive Consortium News, Dennis Michael Lynch, a conservative podcaster, documentarian, and news personality, and @Holborn-Lulz, a British satirist. Even Yoel Roth, Twitter's then head of trust and safety, called BS on that. Yeah, that Yoel Roth, the one who admitted to censoring the Hunter Biden scandal. He called the selection of accounts bizarre and seemingly quite arbitrary, and said that virtually any conclusion drawn from the dashboard will take conversations in conservative circles on Twitter and accuse them of being Russian. Roth even talked about making an ultimatum to release the list. Other employees also wanted to call out Hamilton 68 and say that citing it was being wrong, irresponsible, and biased, especially after Russians were blamed for the Parkland shooting hashtag. So why didn't we hear about this list until now? Simple. Twitter didn't have the guts. Also, transparency wasn't really their thing. Twitter was known for being transparent about as much as Baconators are known for being heart-healthy. The ASD had too much influence and too many connections in Washington, D.C. for Twitter to go public. That's why Emily Horn, who would later become a National Security Council spokesperson, said, "We have to be careful in how much we push back on ASD publicly." But don't worry, according to future Department of Transportation advisor Carlos Monge, it's all about playing the longer game here. Yeah, because what could possibly change at Twitter in a few years while they play the long game? All right, congrats, you played yourselves. In response to Matt Taibbi's report, ASD shared a fact sheet explaining Hamilton 68's methodology and refuting some of Taibbi's claims. On the fact sheet, ASD argues that the media was failing to include appropriate context when using Hamilton 68's dashboard data. The fact sheet insists that Hamilton 68 is very nuanced. ASD knows that not all accounts are bots in Russia, and that not everyone in the list is pro-Russian. Wait, so ASD wants people to include context and prides itself on being nuanced? Oh, so they're basically a worse version of what I do. Stay in your lane, rookies. ASD now says it cherishes the freedom to believe things that might be similar to what Russian state media presents. But that wasn't the impression they gave early on. The impression people got was that they were monitoring bots under the direct orders of the Kremlin. This is like being sold a gluten-free pretzel, and after you've eaten it, they say, "We proudly made this with 100% wheat flour." In a previous version of the website dating back to August 2nd, 2017, ASD said these 600-plus accounts in the Hamilton 68 dashboard were selected for their relationship to Russian-sponsored influence and disinformation campaigns, and not because of any domestic political content. The idea being that the accounts were chosen because of known connections to Russian state disinformation campaigns. Either they worked together with Russian state-run media, self-identified as pro-Russia, or were bots. Those were the criteria. Only most of the accounts they chose to track didn't fit any of those criteria. And even the criteria themselves were kind of circular. We put the accounts on the list because they connect to Russia. How do you know they connect to Russia? Because they're on the list. They pretty much just looked through Twitter, saw things they didn't like, and assumed that it must be Russian disinformation. It's not Russian disinformation, it's just Twitter. Twitter's slogan might as well be, "You're not supposed to like it." It's only now that the dashboard has, in red, a warning saying that it would be incorrect to label anyone on the dashboard as being connected to state-backed propaganda. And that's why Hamilton 2.0 launched in 2019, with the new list that presumably tracks a whole new set of nothing. It's obvious that ASD is trying to quietly backtrack. What's extra ridiculous is the fact that the Hamilton 68 dashboard team didn't even verify the accounts they claimed were at the Kremlin's beckoning, even though the tool claimed to be 98% accurate. I wish I were as confident about anything as ASD was over something they had no idea about. So basically everyone who cited the Hamilton 68 dashboard, especially reporters, couldn't care less about verifying the information. They allowed bias to influence what they told the public. And when they were presented the facts in private, reporters didn't want to listen. They would rather exaggerate the Russian threat and use this to push political agendas. Now everyday people are going to have even more reasons to distrust reporters, big tech leaders, and government officials. And yet, it seems likely that most reporters, academics, and politicians aren't going to admit they messed up big time. It's time reporters start taking reporting seriously again. Cite your sources before we just take everyone's word for everything. And this boxer is considered a flyweight. So what do you think of Hamilton 68's Russian disinformation scam? Leave your comments below. If you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Visit patreon.com/America Uncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.